took a hold of the deadly force policy that was utilized during the search warrant, whether you agree with the search warrant or not, and the search warrant was executed at Mar-a-Lago. Inside the search warrant, every single search warrant,
yes, that's correct.
there's the deadly force policy. There is a general perception, I think, out there of people saying that the FBI is corrupt to the core. There are certain people say the FBI is corrupt to the core. And I vehemently disagree with that. Now, I can speak only from the agent's perspective because I was a street agent for 20 years. And to say that the street agents are rotten to the core is absolutely false.
Yeah, that's unfair.
Unfair and false. When it goes up, that's a different story. I can only speak from experience of me with certain individuals, and I can say exactly, it goes back to, yes, that there are problems. They're politically driven people, individuals. But do I believe that there are individuals at the FBI who are saying, we need to target this group, we need to target that group because of my personal beliefs? I don't believe that. I don't believe.
Not even at that high level, though? Because we've seen that happen.
Well, what I believe is that there are certain individuals, yes, and it looks back like, working Hispanic organized crime. I believe that they're going to say, hey, let's focus looking at this group, okay? Listen, there's nothing wrong with looking at a group, okay? Whether they open, and here's the important word, probable cause.
Yes.
If they have probable cause to believe that any group, religious based, it doesn't matter, whether ethnically, religiously, if they believe, that group is violating a federal crime, that group, they can open up a federal investigation because they have probable cause. So if they believe that group is committing a crime, hey, listen, investigate them, collect the evidence, go before a judge, and then prove it and say, hey, listen, but just opening up a case against somebody because I don't like,
you're targeting them.
That's targeting. That's absolutely wrong. And I don't believe that is happening. And again, I'm saying that I don't believe because I wasn't in 5 other divisions.
You can't speak for 35,000 employees.
I can't speak for 35,000.
Right.
But is there probably, just like any other company in this United States, are there bad people in the FBI? Of course there are.
Every corporation, like even ones that, let's, for the sake of argument here, talk about ones that do things mostly the right way or whatever. Every corporation has a bad office. It has bad people.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of good people. And the problem is all it takes is a few bad people to pull down the reputations of everyone else, especially when people aren't there to see it. So I do agree with you, by the way, and it seems unpopular to say this, but I'll stand by this. There are a lot of people at the FBI who do amazing work and are doing their job the right way and are really trying to seek justice. The problem is that there are people that have been involved in some of these investigations, including on President Trump, that it's like, this is such, like, you're going through his wife's panties drawer. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Like, there's nothing, and objectively, whether you like Trump or not, those cases were bullshit. There's nothing to say that anything that was handled there, or even how they handled some of the people that were just walking around on January 6th, not some of the people like actually breaking windows and shit like that. It's like you see stuff like this and you're like, guys, this is a little too much. And not to give the FBI an out here. However, I would be remiss to say, as someone who doesn't work in there and doesn't know how it works specifically, I would imagine there's also pressure coming from above them in some cases that then comes down and forces them to look bad sometimes.
Well, here, I'll give you an example of how one little piece was taken and flipped over, and it was a situation that was created for the masses, and it was tweeted and retweeted, and everyone talked about it for 2 weeks. And just got up in arms regarding the Trump investigation. I was not involved in the Trump investigation, so I don't know anything about it. But there was one time when certain people on the right side took a hold of the deadly force policy that was utilized during the search warrant, whether you agree with the search warrant or not, and the search warrant was executed at Mar-a-Lago. Inside the search warrant, every single search warrant, there's the deadly force policy.
Yes.
And it clearly states, and for every individual, deadly force is not authorized unless certain criteria are lifted. Well, certain people on the right side took that and said, oh, there was a list in there to assassinate Trump. They went in there looking to assassinate.
It's literally the same thing as every Yeah.
Right. And that caught wind, and it was a
Right.
story for 2 weeks, and then it moved on. But the fact of the matter is, people heard that story in
That's
that
right.
2-week window, and they believed it. They believed that there was that operation at Mar-a-Lago was was a search with an attempted assassination,
Right.
which is completely ludicrous. Because when you stop and talked about it at the end of the 2 weeks, they're like, oh, okay, let's move on to the next story. And that's what we've become these days. It's just a quick, hey, let's take a story, blow it up to something it's not, and then let's besmirch. And that's how the FBI.
That is how it works. Yes.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
And that's the world we live in today. And then I try to come on here and say, listen, the FBI is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Can it be improved? Absolutely. Do I hope Director Patel improves it? Absolutely. I would love to see a much better and stronger and streamlined FBI. But to say that it's rotten to the core, absolutely not.
Yeah, I always talk about this. I cite it on so many podcasts in different contexts. I never get sick of it because it's so true. But like the universal physics law, for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction to create equilibrium in the middle.
Right.
When your pendulums are like this, you can live with that, right? Because it's nice and smooth. When your pendulums get out here and they do this, they're creating that middle with the extremes.
Right. But this pendulum right here, that doesn't get the clicks. That doesn't get the bleed.
That's
If it bleeds, it
exactly
leads.
right.
It's got to be out here.
That's exactly
That
right.
gets the, woo, I need it more extreme. How extreme can I get it? And the truth doesn't really matter anymore.
It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't.
This is what matters. This is what gets the people, the clicks, the links, the discussion, and having the conversations. And listen, I know there are people who are watching this who are not going to agree with me. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Listen, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about it.
Yes,
Hey,
that's what we're doing.
let's talk about it. And that's fine.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
Listen, I am not a politician. I never was a politician. And that's probably why I wasn't selected to be a supervisor and move up the chain of command. Listen, I know plenty of supervisors and I know plenty of leadership at the FBI who are phenomenal people. I was just not of that breed. I just liked staying on the streets. No one, well, excuse me, Stanberg. There are few people that could sit down and how should I put this? Let's say, listen, I'm pretty good at what I did. Pretty good at what I did. Okay. There are some great people that are still working it, and there are great people that worked behind me, and there will always be great people, working Hispanic organized crime, gangs, transnational criminal organizations. And listen, you want to criticize how I worked? That's fine. I'm always open to criticism. Listen, during my trial, I spent 2 days on being cross-examined during my trial. In 2020, in 2021, correct. I spent 2 days
MS-13 in Union City?
Correct.
Okay.
I spent 2 days, convicting, we went up against 3 guys because they had 3 attorneys. So and they criticized, and that's their job. The defense attorneys are saying, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? That's their job. But, and I was criticized, and when I made, certain decisions.
What was the decision they criticized, for example?
Geez. I'd have to go back. I'd have to go back and look at the transcript. I mean, like I said, that was something in the past. I'd have to go back and remember, but it was that's their job. And like I said, I'm more than happy to sit in front of somebody. But the important thing is, and we're getting away from this in societies, having discussions, having conversations, saying, listen, you agree with what your side, I agree with what my decisions are. Hey, let's have a conversation. Why do you think that? Why do I think
That's
this?
right.
And not say, hey, you're evil because you think that,
That's right.
and I'm evil, you're evil. So that's where I think we're getting away from.
I think a lot more people out there, and they're not the ones who go into comment sections, for example, or who tweet the posts to get the most likes and stuff like that. But I think a lot more people than we realize do, like listening right now, in fact, do have nuance in these scenarios. Maybe they lean left or they lean right on certain things, but like they like to listen to conversations like this because they like to hear the things that, they can think about more and decide for themselves. The problem is exactly what you said. You couldn't have put it any better, which is that unfortunately, like you used it bleeds, it leads line that you guys had within the agency, but that's exactly what it is on social media. If I go out and I say something that is hardcore on the left or hardcore on the right, I'm going to incite mass agreement and mass disagreement at the same time, and it's going to go straight up through the algorithm. If I say something that says, well, I can see this or not see that, it doesn't do it as much for people because it's like, all right, well, all right, moving on to the next one. They want to feel that feeling of like team or
and
like
you know
empty.
what? And like I said, I'll be straight up. And we talked about this before. I'm not of that world.
Yeah.
I'm not of that world that's going to give, the sound bite. I don't like that.
Good.
I don't, listen, I have my opinions, I have my political leanings, and, I live in Montana for a reason. So
Big old Democrat.
It's a beautiful state. It's a beautiful state of Montana. Let's just say that.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.